We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.
He started acting at age 4 and very successful. He's come a long way since then. Still lives in Los Angeles. But if you want to change your life, and this is perfect timing for right now, change your thinking. Royce Christyn, I got the book, and they sent me Scripting the Life You Want, and I thought, okay, well, so what am I going to script right now? And at this point, the pandemic stuff started hitting the U.S. I'm like, so I thought, well, I'll just ask Royce, how do we script ourselves out of this?
I know. I like to laugh. I literally the other day, I was sitting, it was about 3 days before the book came out. I was sitting in the car. My fiance was inside the grocery store, and I happened to have a copy of the book that I had to mail, so sitting on the dash. And it's saying, manifest your dreams with a pen and paper, script your life. But I'm watching everybody, God bless them, with masks, walking 10 feet apart and rubber gloves, and one guy had a gas mask on walking by in the grocery store. I was like, well, look, there's a lot of things you can do, and I don't make any promises that I can't keep. How do you script your way out of it? There's a lot of tools that I teach and I talk about that anybody could do at home. You don't need anything special. You can even play with a quantum computer using an app on your phone if you have it, a smartphone called the Fatum Bot, and that is one of the most fun things that you can possibly do, and you can do it while you're on lockdown. Scripting, my technique and my version is very unique. I've used it in my life, as I talk about the book, to manifest, starring, being a lead guest star on Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney Channel with Selena Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
I got my soulmate. I've got lots of money this way. I mean, it's such a weirdly powerful process that anyone can do, and it's just so much fun, and it's so easy, and there's a lot of results. So I would look at it more, for anybody out there listening, as a book that you can read or you can buy on the Kindle or the ebook version of it or the audiobook. It's something to do that not only is fun, and I think there's a lot of really amazing, I'm still just so excited. I'm sure you can hear my voice about the science and the crazy stuff that's coming out. You can learn about all these exciting things that are coming in the future, and you can play, and you can use it as a tool, like maybe we would have used board games 20 years ago or 50 years ago for a situation like this. This book is a very action-oriented book, but it's action at home or out in your yard or your neighborhood that you can do safely during this time. So do I think there's a way to script your way out of the coronavirus? Mentally, yes. And I think physically, inevitably, it's going to be helpful. I know it's helpful.
Let me make a comparison. Okay, you can sit home and play with a Ouija board, which you're opening a lot of doors when you do that, or you can sit home and try manifesting and working this process and take your power back. Instead of giving it away, and this is basically, it's new thought. It's a combination of a lot of different ideas, and the manifesting goes in, you are programming yourself. So if you're going to program yourself to say, oh, I'm a victim, then that's what happens. And that's because you're expressing that and you're living that. But if you're programming yourself and saying, I need to think about my future because this too shall pass. And what can I do to upgrade my circumstances? Because basically we're looking at a reset right now all over the planet. It's a reset. And Mother Earth is going, whoa, Where's this? This is air. Oh, gosh, oxygen. Okay, well, that's a side note. But so there are other things that are happening while we're in this huge crisis moment that are saying, do we want to reset in a higher level, in a better position than we went into during lockdown? And I tell you what, we can.
Yeah, we can program our lives for the better or for the worse. And I believe it's in chapter 2 of the book, or chapter 3 rather, I talk about this. One of the cool things that I found was that there is so much science that sounds like you're reading the coolest, spiritual textbook you've ever read. One of the things that has been discovered is, have you ever had the experience, I'm sure many listeners have, where you hear or see the number 333 or 1111?
Right, sequentials.
You hear a word. Yeah, or you hear a word like Windsor or Queen Elizabeth or something maybe that's not always in your normal day-to-day life. and then you start seeing it everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that used to be called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, and it's because it occurs when basically that thing you just noticed or experienced or been told about just seems to and appears to give you that feeling that it's everywhere, just pops up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So what that actually is in the last 5 to 10 years, they've discovered, and I go into detail about this in the book and how you can use it in the reverse, basically, and that's a positive thing, is that there's something called the reticular activating system in our brains. And it is the coolest thing ever. It is basically your brain filter, and it has 2 jobs, and they're very important. It focuses on what we deem important, so our goals, our beliefs. If we wake up saying, "Oh, it's going to be the best day ever," our reticular activating system in our brain, it is now programmed because of what we've told it to do and look for by saying it's going to be a great day, to go out and point out all the amazing and good things and experiences around you that day. It works in the opposite, obviously, as well. If you say it's a bad day, it goes and pulls those out. That's number one. Number two, it focuses on our survival, which is, what in the current moment will allow us to stay alive. And what I've discovered, and what a lot of scientists have realized, is we have the ability to actually program our reticular activating system, this massive sounding scary word in our brain, to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's really easy, because perception is one of the main things I talk about in the book. Not main, I'd say there's a lot of main things, but it's a fascinating discussion that we go into about how Donald Hoffman, a professor at University of California, Irvine, has discovered that evolution does not favor reality, which is a whole other discussion we can talk about in a bit. But with the reticular activating system, let's say for me, I always used to lose my keys, and I have a Yeti mug. It's called Yeti, actually, which is funny because I know we talk about Bigfoot on here, but it's a brand of a reusable mug. So
yes.
I always have my drink in there, my water, and I lose my keys. I used to lose it all the time. So as I was teaching a workshop this past winter, I was talking about the reticular activating system, and I realized in this workshop with this very, very high powered real estate agents in Beverly Hills, because I'm like the guy that they'll call them secretly, but they don't want to tell anybody about, to come and get everybody kind of understanding how to manifest better numbers and bigger numbers or better sales. But I realized when I got home that night, oh my God, I'm teaching about this. I started to say out loud to my brain. It sounds a little funny. I'm not a big fan of talking out loud and sounding crazy, but if you do say it works, it's the point of this. But if you say out loud, let's say you lost your keys and you happen to walk in and place them on a table that you don't normally do, and you were absent-minded and just thinking about something else, it's 10 minutes later when you realize you need your keys. If you say out loud, brain, where are my keys? And then let it go, within about 2 or 3 minutes, your reticular activating system, this is a real process in your brain, will direct your body. You will find it. I found in less than 5 minutes, whatever you've lost, because your brain still knows where it's a computer, and it took that code, it took that information, but it filtered it where you dropped your keys originally, because maybe you had something else on your mind, or maybe you were thinking about whatever.
Right.
And your brain has so many things in its basically storage areas that it keeps from you. Not because it's hurting you, but because you have either not told it to focus on it, which is like the 1111, or it's not imperative for your survival. That real estate group that I talked to, and I did a great workshop with them. It was I had so much fun. And there was a new girl there who had just started, and one of her big goals was to get a listing worth $10 million. And this is one of the top real estate agencies and offices in the whole country. So they're big numbers. They play with everybody, the big, actors and politicians and all those types. So I said, all right, listen, I have 3 really simple tools. It takes about 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. Mm-hmm. But I said, do the 3 tools and call me, because I knew she would get a client that would give her a listing, because she couldn't get a big listing. That was one of the goals of the company for her. So about 3 weeks later, she called me. Long story short, she had been doing her work every day, doing the tools, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, and she was in a coffee shop, and she happened to notice outside, right next door is a bookstore, and there was a sign outside for this very well-known guy, big entrepreneur she was a huge fan of. Can't say his name for the reason you'll soon know about in 1 minute, but he was doing a book signing, a talk. And she loved this guy. She watched him on TV all the time. So she was really excited, and she had her break. She went in, caught the last 5 minutes of his little talk, and went up to him afterwards, and they got to talking. Turns out he had a property. He wasn't from the area that he owned. A property worth $11 million. And guess who got the listing? Our friend from the real estate office. Now, what she was so weirded out about, and what I love about my tools, because they're not as woo-woo as a lot of the other tools. And I love woo-woo, but these aren't woo-woo. These are very real.
Back in a few, scripting the life you want. Scripting the life you want. Royce Christyn. So what happened?
Her client, the $11 million man, said to her, it's so weird. Why didn't you come to my whole talk? And she goes, well, I didn't know what was happening. And he goes, well, there was a sign up. He lives very close by when he's in LA. He has a house close by. He doesn't live here permanently, but he lives right up the street from where the book signing was when he is here. He said, well, there's been a sign outside the bookshop for 3 weeks. And she was floored because her brain had been filtering it out because she was so focused on life and worried about not getting listings and not telling her brain essentially what it is that she wanted, that she had walked by this sign that would have led her to this client many times, probably 30 or 40 times, she told me, for weeks, if not longer. But it wasn't until she got into the habit of taking a minute a day to program her brain to look for opportunities, which were already in her environment and her perception. She just wasn't perceiving it because she wasn't programming her brain to see it. She would have completely missed it. But because she took the time to do it, just a minute a day, her brain now, it's just like 11:11, it pulled an opportunity and therefore a giant awesome manifestation right into her life. Yes, we can program and decide right now in this reset what kind of lives we want to live. And we can also, there's a lot of big fun tools in there, but there's some little ones like that can get people started and thinking outside of the box. The book does a little bit of a 180 in the best way possible, as you read, in the middle of the book, because the first 5 chapters out of 10, first 5 are about manifesting, and there's some really fun tools in there in science, but chapter 6 onwards talks about some really out there and crazy technologies and sciences, and I tried to put together things in a very linear way to help people see this incredible new bridge between what I say science and spirituality. Again, this book was written in November and December of 2018 with a few minor additions, maybe only 30 pages worth over the course of 2019 as I went through the editing process. My favorite chapter is chapter 9, which is about memetics and memes. And I use the example of toilet paper, which we don't have to talk about because everyone's talking about toilet paper right now. But
it's got pictures. You've got pictures too, just in case people didn't know.
I do. Well, and it's funny because the book, the physical copies, they were printed months ago. Obviously, the book just came out, but it's funny because the average person, most people are smart enough and they know just from life that books are not made overnight. It's a process like a film or anything else. And I had a really so funny. I had a great email yesterday. Someone contacted me from my website. And they said, I am blown away, but I'm so confused. How did you know that there was going to be a toilet paper panic? And how did you know this? And I explained, it was just the example that I felt guided to put in there. It's a really funny example. And anybody out there who reads the book, I'll save the punchline for you. But it's based on science, and it was just something that I intuitively, I guess you can call it, felt would be pertinent for people to read about come 2020, and here we are.
Okay. I'm going to say that this isn't just your ordinary toilet paper. Okay, so if you are creative and at home and have time alone, you can experiment some of the things that are being done with this particular toilet paper. All right?
Yeah, it's special toilet paper. It definitely makes you think about where your thoughts are coming from in your head. I'll say that.
Yes.
When you look at the pictures, and it's not gross for anybody out there. It's absolutely for all ages, so don't worry. It's very clean toilet paper.
Okay. Royce, just a second though. But the language, which I find fascinating, dealing with a pandemic right now, the language in his book, Thought Contagion, Aaron Lynch. Okay, there's that one. Read a newspaper, catch a mind virus. The language in this book also mirrors our reality at the moment. So you didn't think ahead.
That's weird. I didn't even think about that.
Okay.
I said sounds so silly.
Yeah.
I know it's my book, but you're right. Go on. I love this.
That's
Wow.
what I think about this, is that there's a lot more going on than just, I'm going to write a book and this will be a fabulous idea. And this is an idea whose time is really come. And this is important for anyone who wants to take back the power and realize that we are participating. This isn't happening to us. We're happening to it. and as we shift and we start being proactive instead of reactive and put out some of the mind drama, close out some of the, we can't do this and this is, all these really huge catastrophes that are being predicted, and go back and do, well, what can I do in this moment at this time? And that's where I like chapter 8, because that's putting it all together. Okay, you still read the whole book, but chapter 8 lays out the details and the fine print, the daily want list, the belief list, the script, the nightly journal, all of those things. And that's where I think you really sum it up here and, give people a template to work with. Plus, there's that thing with toilet paper.
I wish I could sit here and say, oh, yes, of course, I purposely added that. And I'm such a high and mighty author. I knew exactly what I was doing. But you're making points that not even I thought about. But, that's part of the best thing about writing is it's so guided. It's such a guided process as far as, there's something otherworldly. And I don't talk about this that much. And every friend of mine who writes, and even my friends from my days of acting in TV, there's sort of this whisper, and it's the fact, you're in a state where you're receiving the universe and you're being guided. The timing of the book I think is great, and yes, chapter 8 is awesome because people can put it all together, and anybody out there listening, that's the greatest thing. The whole book can be summarized really in chapter 8. It's easy. I wanted this to be fun.
Yeah.
I wanted this to be easy, but I also wanted it to be educational. I wanted it to be something that people, really learned from and really got a lot out of. But and I don't know how much you remember about the I believe it's chapter 7, but there's some insane things happening right now with time and the science out there. One of my favorite ones is not just quantum mechanics and quantum physics, which you hear so much in New Age books and self-help books and soft books, but you have audiologists, people who study hearing, who have discovered that they can prove this much. They can prove that your brain right now knows the sentences that I'm going to say before my mind and me and my brain even know or have formulated the thought or know what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about this pretty extensively. And I cite quite a few research papers and textbooks and chapters in other books that talk about this from scientists, which I am not one of, but they are realizing very quickly that the future seems to be predicting the past, and that's a really weird thing, that the future is affecting them now, and that is really hard. It was hard for me to wrap my head around at first, but this idea of time, I had no idea. They didn't teach me this in school, but the agreed upon theory of time right now is something called the block time theory. I don't know what you thought about that, but when I first started researching, and it was very clear, and anybody out there, don't take my word for it. Go out and do some research, because the whole theory out there that all scientists believe in when they're trying to understand and explain time is that we live in something called a block universe. It's basically scientists who we listen to, and just everyone from Stephen Hawking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, I mean, whoever you want to fill in there, they have this incredible theory that the time that we understand it is essentially if you can imagine a three-dimensional square. There's actually there's an image of it in the book. There's some back and forth arguments about it, but basically it's not just that all time is happening at once, but that it's already happened and it already didn't happen. That's what's so interesting about what you touched on as far as us affecting what comes next.
Yeah.
In some ways, we've already done that.
Okay, here's a trippy thought. We're going to take a break and go back to the future. Think about that. Royce Christyn, Scripting the Life You Want. You've already had contact from readers.
The book just came out, and I've gotten some incredible messages from people who are creating their own little tools to deal with the pandemic and deal with how they're own mind works and thinks when it comes to what we're going through on lockdown. But, when you really get into the time theory and all this stuff, it's not hard. It sounds to some people like it might be not this very easy thing to understand, but I feel like one of the things that I hopefully accomplish for people is laying it out there in a way that not only, you can understand it, I know that, but also that you could start to understand it enough to play around with it and see how much you really are affecting your current reality. I mean, you talk a lot on this show, I know, from what I know of you from my own research and my, first always like to look into where I'm going on the show. And we talked beforehand off mic, you talked about a lot of paranormal things and UFOs and all sorts of really fascinating stuff that I think we are getting closer and closer to understanding better and maybe getting some interesting new viewpoints because, and not just from our side of things, but the scientific world too, because there is so much out there that we aren't perceiving. There's so much out there with time that we don't understand. The example I love to use, I put it in my book, it's Donald Hopkins, the professor I mentioned, she talks about perception, is if you think about our brain as a super quantum computer, then you have to think about what we see or what we think we see in our environment as the equivalent of a computer desktop. When you look at a file on your desktop or an icon for the internet, let's say, that's not really a file. That's not really a little compass for Safari on the internet. There's diodes and electrons and all sorts of crazy mechanics going on behind that, what we see on the computer desktop screen as a file. And in that file might be a really important questionnaire or a really important paper. But really, it's a representation of zeros and ones, and that's how the computer interprets it. So it's easier to perceive and understand from the computer's end, and obviously from us, the human perspective. And if you think of your brain as that computer with all of the zeros and ones and all those amazing components that I can't even understand and completely that go into a computer, and you think of our eyes as the projection that it is coming up with, the equivalent of a desktop, it gives you a lot of power because you realize it's all something that you can control with your emotions, your thoughts, and your feelings, but not just control, you can power back and you can have a lot of fun with it and you can really shift and change things in your life and you can understand weird paranormal things that people say are weird and paranormal. Maybe it's not so weird. Maybe it's just a question of perception. My dad had my dad is one of the most, not buttoned up and laced up. He's a great guy, but he was never as into anything paranormal or UFO as my grandparents and my mom and that side of the family was. But he had a crazy experience when he was 19, or I guess it was 19 years old, back in Philadelphia. That involved what he swears is a UFO.
In your book, I have to, of course, find something. Well, is there anything Bigfoot? Is there anything UFO, ghost? And guess what? Guess what? Yes, it comes up page 105, okay, for you following along at home. Page 105, turn there. All right? And it's because it's supposed to be basically thinking how all of this time slip stuff, because you also go on and play. I love the Matrix on Reddit. There's one, things in the Matrix, and you picked up the
Matrix, yeah.
Yes, and there's what, the Randonauts? Randonauts, yes.
I love them.
Okay.
That is something I encourage. That's the quantum computer app I was talking about at the beginning.
Yes. Okay.
Love
and I've experienced my own time slips. I've experienced the ET contact. I mean, I can get into all sorts of stuff and go off the deep end, but we're not doing that. So this stuff I know is real.
We can stay on the deep end. We can go deeper.
Well,
your listeners, I think they're pretty smart. They're listening to you. They're pretty open.
Well, this is stuff that our science doesn't have a way to quantify. And yet what I think is happening and what I see happening and what I have been hearing and picking up in my own little time stream is that there are more people saying, look, I saw a UFO. I had a ghost experience. There's paranormal stuff. And I think it's because instead of being lockstep the way we usually are, okay, 9 to 5, la, 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 everything goes in sync. It is a sequence. It's all on schedule. And there's no deviation. Right now, there's a huge deviation and people are going, what the heck's going on? Did I see what I thought I saw? So there's an opening, a window for people to look at different things, and they're being exposed to things they wouldn't normally, like the woman who went to the store or went to that bookstore and he said, well, the sign's been out for 3 weeks, because she didn't deviate. Every day she did the same pattern: repeat, reset, repeat. Right now, there's no repeat. So so that's where I'm going with that. How's that?
We're in timeless time in a way. It's really interesting and it's exciting to me because there is a whole section of the book, and it talks about what this incredible forum on Reddit. For those of you out there listening, if you don't know, Reddit is one of the coolest websites I think in the world. It's the equivalent of more of an old school internet message board, but you have millions of people from all over the planet who, there's fan pages for whatever you like. If you like a TV show or there's one to recipes and cooking, and it's pretty much anything you can think of, there's a Reddit page for it. And with the Reddit page itself, it's like a forum where anybody can, there's rules and there's moderators, but anyone can join. It's free, and you can tell your stories or give your recipes. Or in the case of the forum called Glitch in the Matrix, people write in their tales and their stories, real life stuff of things like the woman who on page 105, like you just mentioned, who she moved into a house with her family. She was looking for a house rather, and there was a adorable poodle next door. I'm paraphrasing the story here, but basically that was one of the reasons that the family chose to move into the house, because the neighbor had a poodle, and this family used to have a poodle. And cut to 3 months later, they finally meet this neighbor who had the poodle in the yard that made them choose this house. And they started saying, "Oh, what's the poodle's name?" And we haven't seen it. And the lady, the neighbor, was just stunned, and she goes, "My poodle died 7 years ago. And there's no dog here." And that's a glitch. That's what people call a glitch, because something clearly with time happened. There's a lot of interesting glitch in the Matrix examples that are real life stories that I talk about in the book. And you just made such an incredible point, because people are not on repeat right now, and it is either something that I think people listening, like, you can look at it as terrifying, or look at it like I do as invigorating and exciting, because you have the chance to explore what's around you. There's so much that is in your world already that is just amazing and incredible and paranormal and cool and not paranormal, but so cool. And we have this time right now that is been given to us. I had, I'm not going to name names, but I'm very fortunate to have a lot of very, very well-known people who endorsed the book and that are printed in there. But one of them actually reached out last night, and they said to me, "What's going on, Royce? Like, what is this? What is happening? Like, what is actually happening?" And I really think my feeling is to actually pass the question on you, because you just described, I want your opinion, because you just said it in one of the best ways I've heard it so far, which is, it's a reset, yes, but it's also like a pause where you can take the time to adjust things. It's almost as if you were rehearsing. Yes. This is just my background, but rehearsing a big play or a big show on Broadway, and it's not in front of an audience yet. Or you take a break in the middle of the dress rehearsal and you readjust the set, and you change the lines, and you get everything perfect, because everything is it's able to be paused and played with and adjusted to make it so that when the play button gets pressed and you go back on stage, everything is how you want it. And I'm curious, though, what you think is going on, because, it's a question we're all getting asked, and, we're all in the same boat, whether we write books or host awesome shows like this, like you do. It doesn't matter who we are. We're all in this together, and I hope that we're going to help people maybe get some insight. And I'm in the same boat. I'm curious what you think is going on.
All right, after the break. Scripting the Life You Want with Royce Christyn. You wanted my perspective, and this is what I do with intuition. It's been pretty strong. There was a warning, and this has been, for several years, that something was going to happen. And some people were even saying they were feeling anxious. And I know in the fall I was thinking the other shoe's going to drop. What the heck what was the first shoe? What's the other shoe? What's happening? But there's this sense of something was coming. And the language I got was that it was going to reshape what we did. This is the fun stuff I get. My husband and I were out walking keeping our distance. So we're walking the dogs and we come across, we're trying to avoid coming, face to face with anybody else. And so we take a detour or, sidestep, whatever, so we don't cross paths with somebody else. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of a walk here. We can't detour. We see 3 people coming forward. One is a single walker and the other is a couple, and they have a black dog between them. And my husband, since we have 2 dogs and they sometimes get excited, the little one gets a little toy as soon as he said, "Hey, the dog up there." "Yeah, I know, I see." Give the dog the toy. And then we get closer and they stop in front of us off to the side about 10 feet away, and then they're saying, "Oh, your dogs are so well behaved. We have 3 schnauzers and they would never, blah, blah, blah." And they go on. They can't take them on the walk. They're not walk friendly. And I said to him, Did you see something missing? And he said, "They didn't have a dog." Yeah. We both saw a black dog between them, walking in about the size of a Doberman or a Lab. Okay, the black dog, and that's why I wrote about it, black dog intuition, or because what that means for me, and this is all different for people who have totem spirits, animal guides, whatever, and intuition or time slip. You can go so many different directions, but that's mine. So I interpret it as a time. The black dog is usually a warning and a protection. So for me, it means that we have been warned and we have protection, but we have to do the right thing. And that's different for every single person. But right now, it's a big deal. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. And it gave me chills because it's such a great, fantastic explanation, and it resonates with me. And also on top of that, I'd like to add 2 things is I am a big believer in animals and totems. There was the added, I would say, message from the universe of pay attention with, "Hey, this dog was there," and then it wasn't. That was an extra, "Hey, this is a totem, just in case." And the universe does that to me too. It does it to a lot of people. When it's an animal message, it'll give you maybe an extra sign. But I always notice the quality, and I live in an area right at the foothills of one of the big mountain ranges in LA, and with lots of trees and birds and everything. But there's a regular bird that'll fly by all the time, and I know it's not a sign, but then you'll have something very interesting like I had just about a month ago that you reminded me of, and I'm so glad that you did, because I didn't write it down, and I write everything down.
Yes.
Very late.
Yeah.
And it's 2 very odd things, and it followed for about a week, which is how I know. And I always look up to see what the totem means. Earlier in the night, around, I don't even know, maybe 6 o'clock at night, but it's just the sun was going down, and we have hummingbirds. That's not out of the ordinary. There's it feels like millions of them sometimes in around. But baby red ones, I had to even Google to see if red ones were something that were endemic to here, but came up right in front of my face and said hello, as I would say, and I knew that was a totem. And the hummingbirds are really, really positive totem, and stayed and hovered for a good, this isn't hyperbole, maybe 2 minutes. I mean, it was long. It was a while. Yeah. To the point where I was like, okay, I'm listening. And it was a weird time of night for, like I said, it was getting dark out, so it was weird for him to be flying around. But about 3 hours later, I was actually researching. I just finished my second book, the manuscript for it, that'll be coming out hopefully next year. It delved into some more of these topics that are out there and paranormal, but I don't think they're going to feel out there anymore after this. Yeah. But anyway, I don't get spooked at all. I mean, it's rare, but I'm not ashamed to say that I was researching and writing some stuff, and I have a little outdoor area that I take my laptop out into in my backyard and just write. I have a big backyard, I should add, that's wooded, and it's completely surrounded on all 3 sides. And you can't see the neighbors, and it's almost like a little woods, if you will. But the noise was so loud and clear, and I didn't have the outdoor light on. I was just walking out. I didn't have the backyard light on yet. And it was clearly a few feet from me, and it was giant, and made this noise, and I didn't know what it was. It was an animal. We have mountain lions and coyotes. I knew it wasn't that. It had wings, but I ran inside, and I went to my fiance, and I was like, I need to find this noise right now. I think it was an owl. So I actually went on YouTube, and I started searching for owl sounds, and I finally found the exact type of owl. But I don't remember off the top of my head. I do have it written down, though. I found it pretty quickly, and I went back outside to do some writing, and it was actually talking about what we're going through right now, and with lockdown, and it was coming. It hadn't started yet, but I knew it was coming, and it was just kind of this weird feeling that was in the air. And this owl was just talking to me all night, and it wasn't a territorial. I was listening to all the different kinds of noises. It wasn't a mating call. It was right up in the tree, maybe not even honestly 15 feet from me, very close. So he's still around. The owl and that hummingbird, almost. I mean, the hummingbird comes and goes, but I'd say in the last however many weeks it's been now. Now, what's interesting is I'm still figuring out what the meaning is. This is chapter 1 of the book, basically, is, I grew up in a really weird family, where they grew up teaching me about all sorts of odd and interesting and unique things. And I was raised on New Thought when my friends in school and elementary school were going to synagogue or Hebrew school or Catholic school or whatever. I was, on Sundays with my grandma and my mom learning about, New Thought and creating your own reality and all sorts of weird and cool and wonderful things like this. I do know that when the owl keeps coming back, and it feels very comforting. It's not scary to me, but I'm curious now as to what your intuition says, because it's been such it's like a release every time I see him or her, and the energy almost feels female, but I don't know that it is. But it's a very calm energy, but it's been basically since coronavirus hit the U.S. and now since lockdown. She comes and finds me, or he comes and finds me, and this owl makes the most beautiful noises every night.
Yeah.
And I don't stay up very late, so that was one night as a play. But earlier and earlier, I'll hear him or her outside, our window, or right in the back. Our kitchen's right off from the backyard, so we hear it a lot if I get up for some walks in the middle of the night. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening, and maybe hopefully will help maybe make them realize that they're also getting some messages for you and for what you talk about. I'm sure you might have some more insight, because owls are connected to a lot of things in the paranormal world too, right?
Yeah. Well, and for one thing, they're also ET, alien abduction, those kind of things.
Right. That's one of the big.
That's a huge.
Here, right?
Yeah, that's a huge symbol. I also go with it as a totem animal.
That's what it feels like.
Yes,
to me.
It is an identity for a symbol that you associate with what is the meaning of owl. And for me, you're getting answers and things in the dream plane, because the owl is an in-between. And so also in your dream plane and in your daydream, night dream, you're having, at this point, a huge reset connect with the next phase, the next steps on your path. And that's part of what this is about, because it's like a very core. It's the symbol here is that connection of seeing between night and day. So between the sheets of time, between your tuning in and receptive.
Yeah.
And so that's where it, to me, is that symbol relates that the receptivity that you have of going within and then paying attention to that intuition and, being that, they would call it a hollow bone, a channel for information that would be helpful right now for people to hear, to get people through a time that's very chaotic, where there's a lot of upheaval and uncertainty, and going back to center and saying, we were born for this. And this is what we do. And we come forward and come out of the closet with our real gifts while we were practicing before everything stopped. And we were practicing doing what might be helpful for right now. So I'm putting a whole lot of words to that. But you also have the ability within you to understand, as you're saying, it feels comforting. It's a support. It's a reminder. It's a refresh of, hey, you got this. And obviously you do.
Wow. That I hope so. And I feel so strongly that we all have something to contribute, and what you just said is incredible, by the way. Thank you. I totally flipped this around accidentally and started interviewing you my outfit, but no, that just I guess I have tears in my eyes, seriously, in a good one, because that resonated. I hope that what I teach and what I do for with my writing and everything else does help people, and like you just said it perfectly. I feel like I've been practicing my whole life a bunch of different things that could hopefully maybe would work. We're all in this together, like I said. No one alone could do it, but whoever I can help, if it's 2 people or 20, that's amazing.
Scripting the Life You Want. The book is out now, available anywhere you can buy books. Connect with Royce, because obviously he's in the work mode now, and he's going to go full speed ahead with book number 2, 3, and 4, did I hear?
yeah, 2 is already done. So,
okay.
3's halfway there. So yeah, please connect with me. I'm really easy to get a hold of. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. I love Twitter. I use it a lot, but I do read my own emails. It can be a few days, but I usually I try to get back to everybody. And my book is Scripting the Life You Want. And yes, it's available everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'm looking forward to book number 2.
Thank you. So am I. I'm really excited about it.
When things feel a bit chaotic, Instacart helps deliver milk and sausage. Add a little life to your cart. Get stuff from literally all your stores, from baby wipes to albacore. Add a little life to your cart. Instacart helps get your groceries. Your first 3 deliveries are free.
Download Instacart. Add life to cart. Terms apply.